welcome to the show. I'm Tigo. We talk about a lot of things on our show, but the one thing we don't talk about enough is sales. I try to tell people all the time, you can build the biggest mousetrap, the best products, the best services, but if you don't know how to get people to come to your door, either virtually or in reality, then you kind of got stuff that's a hobby. It's not a business until you're actually selling it. And people have asked me, well, where did you learn sales? Well, for me, my mom says I came here selling. So I got a little blessing on that side, but I still had to learn a lot. And I try to surround myself with the right people, and I'm always trying to learn new things. So today, we're going to hang out with somebody who has mastered this thing called sales. He's got this thing called Sales Ascender. Today, we've got Sean Malone on the show. So sit right there. We'll be right back.
Hey, I have a quick question for you. Do you want a professional agency to handle all your video creation, syndication, and monetization needs? We totally understand that new leads and customers are the lifeblood for any business. And if you're looking to grow or scale your business, using video is definitely the best way to go. Here at Melrose 11, we specialize in getting you the results you need to help you grow your business by generating new leads, driving more traffic, and closing more sales without breaking your bank. Did you know, according to HubSpot, having a well-targeted video on your landing page can increase conversions by up to 80%? Yeah, and up to 64% of users are more likely to buy a product online after watching video than by text alone. And that 92% of mobile users share videos with others. And 90% of users say that videos are helpful in their purchase decision making. Incorporating video into your marketing and social media activity is no longer an option, it's an absolute requirement if you're looking for long-term success. Heck, it may even be essential for the very survival of a business. Here at Melrose 11, media truly is our passion. We create animated explainer videos, social teasers, catchy intros, full HD commercials, and even viewer interactive videos. So, if you're looking to elevate your brand, or attract more leads, generate more sales, increase traffic, or build up more exposure for your business, then you've definitely come to the right place. Our professional team will develop your video campaigns at an affordable price, with our fast turnaround times, and a quality of work that can't be beat.
What's happening, Sean? How you doing? I'm so glad you could be here. I don't know what to tell you, man. You have so much energy. You found me on Facebook, and I went, who is this guy? Why does he send me messages? And if he's going to sell me Shackley or Amway, I'm going to find him. But you didn't, and you really do know your stuff. What got you started in sales? I mean, some people see that as a dirty word, and you see it as fun. So what got you started in this?
Yeah, I love sales. I'm passionate about it. I believe that, it falls under the branch of communications. And I'll tell you, when I first started in my career path, down the career path of sales, what was happening was I was in college and I was playing baseball. I had a full ride to play baseball in college, and I thought that was going to be my career until it wasn't my career, right? And so as I was coming to the end of my college career, I got to a place where I was like, what am I going to do? And then I graduated from college and I was like, what am I going to do? And all of a sudden I thought, well, the one person that I've seen do really well in business is my dad. So I called him up on the phone and I said, hey, Dad, I want to make a lot of money. How do I do that? And that was the first question I ever asked him. And he said to me, he's like, well, Sean, you have 3 choices. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I started getting all excited and intense. And then I said, what are the choices? And he goes, well, number 1, he goes, are you a CEO? And I was like, CEO, that's the chief executive officer. I'm 22 years old. I know baseball and I had some friends. No, I'm not a CEO. I don't know anything to be a CEO. And this is the second thing. Okay, if you're not a CEO, are you an entertainer? And I was like, well, I can't sing. I don't dance. And I don't know how to rap. So clearly, no, I'm not an entertainer either. And so then he said, well, the third option you have, Sean, he says, you better go learn sales. And that was the start of where I went. And he had been in the game. He had master's in business. He was a metallurgist by trade. And so he built a couple of smaller businesses. And so I took a job in sales and I sucked. I was at the bottom, right? I mean, Tigo, you've experienced that, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And and here's what I mean. Like, a lot of people go, well, Sean, no, you don't suck. You don't suck at anything. I was like, I thought sales you had to be good with the gift of gab. Like, that's what I thought it was. And everyone tells you, oh, you're a natural sales guy. You need to be in sales. Like I had none of that. And so I literally went in, and for 6 weeks, every day for 6 weeks, Monday through Friday. So that's, I picked up my cell phone, or my phone at the time, a big old school phone, the rotary or whatever. And, I made 80 cold calls a day. I had a manufacturer's directory, like a big book of names. No, I never knew any of them. I just flipped it open to a page and I started dialing. And my requirement in my job was make 80 calls a day and call after call after call after call for 6 weeks. So 6 weeks of calls, 80 calls a day. That's 2,400 calls. Tigo, how many appointments do you think I booked out of 2,400 calls?
10 a day?
0. I booked 0 calls out of 0 appointments out of 2,400 attempts. And that's why I sucked at sales, right? And
wait, hold on. I got to cut you. 80 calls a day.
Yeah.
I hate making 10 calls a day right now. It's like, thank God for all the technologies and Facebook and everything. I don't have to talk to people all day long, but 80 calls a day, and you got up the next day and did it again, and you were not booking. So I got to ask you, what drove you to get up the next day and keep doing it? Why did you keep going?
Well, I just kept remembering what my dad said. He's like, you want to make a lot of money, you better be good at sales. And I was like, okay, well, I figured out, like, the one thing I knew is I had resilience, and I had this conviction of if he's giving me the direction, he wouldn't steer me wrong. And I just needed to figure it out. And I didn't know how to figure it out because I just didn't know what you didn't know. And so it took quite a long time. And then at about that 6-week mark, I was completely frustrated. I mean, you could imagine making that many calls every single day, and you're just at that place where you're like, oh, like I want to cut my neck, my throat off. Like I'm done with this. Like, do I quit? Do I not? Like, where do you go? What was my limit? And I thought to myself, man, if I made it 2 months and I didn't even book an appointment, if I made it to that 8-week mark, I was done. That was my limit. And my boss came to me at the end of 6 weeks, and he said his name was Tim. He goes, Sean, he goes, you've been doing this for 6 weeks and I haven't even seen you leave the office to go to an appointment yet. And I was like, yeah, no, I haven't booked an appointment yet. And so he was like, man, you better go figure this thing out. And this was on a Friday afternoon. And I started freaking out because I've never been fired. It was my first job out of college. I'd never been fired. I didn't know what that meant. And he's like, I'm going to fire you if you don't figure it out. So I went home and I didn't know what to do. And of course, like a little bit of disgrace, I called my dad and I'm like, Dad, this isn't working, man. Like, I don't know. Like, should I just throw in the towel? And he says the greatest piece of advice that I think I've ever had from him. He goes, no, Sean, go to the library and read a book. And I was like, oh, light bulb. Like, that's what I just did for 4 years in college. Like, I could probably go back and do that. So I went to the library and I found this book. It was called How to Master the Art of Selling Anything. It was written by Tom Hopkins. And I just sat down in the library and I literally started reading it. And I got all the way to chapter 7. And about halfway through chapter 7, there's this one little paragraph that I read and it hit me. And I was like, I've never heard anything like that before. It's new, it's fresh. And guess what? I've tried pretty much everything else. I beat my head against the wall 17 times. Hasn't worked. I'm going to try this thing. So I took the book, I rented it from the library, I went home and I stood in front of that mirror and I literally held the book here and I read that thing to myself in the mirror over and over and over until I memorized that line. And I went back on Monday and I picked up my phone. And I got real nervous and I started like sweating and I was like, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. And I'm like, oh, am I going to do this? Like, am I going to do this? I'm going to do this. Like I was trying to psych myself into it. And I literally got in the conversation and I somehow got through the gatekeeper because I used to get blocked by gatekeepers all the time. And I got to this decision maker and I dropped this line. And he goes, oh yeah, sure. Come on by over on Tuesday at 9 a.m. And I was like, I had to like hold my, you know, when you're like, yeah, you're so excited, but you have to like keep calm, right? So I was like, great, I'll see you then. And I like got off the phone and I literally started dancing around in my office because I was like, I did it, I booked an appointment. And my boss comes over, he's like, what happened? You closed the deal? I was like, no, I got an appointment. And he's like, oh, just walked up.
So let me ask you about fear, because if you had not been doing sales before that, there had to be something in there called a little bit of fear, right? How did you tackle fear to be able to pick up the phone the first time? What was playing in your head? What were you telling yourself the very first time? You know, because I have pre-conversations with myself. Oh, they're going to love it or they're going to hate it. Oh, they're going to hang up on me. They're going to do this. What were you telling yourself to get through the fear to get started in the first place?
Yeah, to get started in the first place, I think it goes back to like my upbringing in sports, and my parents made me play pretty much every sport on the planet. And luckily I was okay at some sports and kind of in the middle to the upper pack of most of the sports teams that I was involved with. And I remember like anytime I upgraded, so it was like junior high into high school sports, and then went from JV into varsity sports at high school, and then went from high school sports into college sports. And there was always these levels that you had to up level yourself. And I kept relating sales to sports. And I was like, okay, like as I start in any new level, I'm always at the bottom. And then I just got to figure out the fundamental basics. And then I can kind of start climbing the ranks and maybe eventually become a captain of the team. And so I had that mentality in my mind as I went into the sales field, because I was like, yo, I've conquered sports before, I can conquer sales. And that was where it started. But then, you know, you start getting hung up on, you start getting yelled at, and you say, don't call me again. And like, there's that stuff. So there is a little bit of self-talk. So luckily I had some supportive people around me that kind of helped me guide through that and say, hey, no, you're just keep going. It's your first job. You're okay. And eventually, yeah, I just kind of got through it. So.
You know, right now we're in the middle of COVID. I mean, I don't know when people are watching this, but it could be 2035 and they're going, what's COVID? But for right now, we're in the middle of COVID,
Right.
And, you know, people are forced to do a lot of things virtually. You and I are doing this interview virtually, and phone sales was kind of going away for a while there, but now it's coming back full force because hey, you can't go door to door right now. You can't really even go brick mortar to brick mortar right now. So for somebody who is sitting at home and maybe they've been laid off, maybe they, you know, need to change their career because they're afraid to go back to whatever they were doing before. They don't want to be out there in the public eye. How would you tell them to get started if they're thinking about the opportunity they just saw for phone sales? What would you tell them if they go, I don't know if that's for me?
Yeah, well, if you're just getting started in phone sales, like if you want to be in your own business at all, I remember when I was in the corporate world, and one of the things I hated more than anything was having to ask a grown adult, because I was a grown adult, to either go to lunch or go to the bathroom or be able to take half a day off. And so I thought, oh man, like I want my own business at some stage. I don't know what that looks like. Since I wasn't a CEO and I wasn't an entertainer and I didn't have my own business, I thought, well, my dad said go into sales. He must have meant that means I could kind of set my own calendar. So one of the nice things about being a sales professional is like you can actually set your own calendar. So there's a lot more perk than not perk in sales. And the nice thing is when you learn just the fundamentals, literally just the fundamentals, and you can actually start turning deals over, you'll get better at it. And I think when you start getting there, you'll learn that you can actually write your own ticket and you can make as much money as you ever wanted to. And it's just like anything. When you first go to school, you don't know anything. And when you first try anything, like one of my mentors, his name's Garrett White, runs an amazing program. He said, listen, Sean, at first you're going to suck. I was like, okay, that's pretty powerful. And he said, but then guess what? You're going to keep doing it. You're going to suck less. I was like, okay, cool. And then he goes, guess what? And then you're going to suck so little, you actually become good.
Well, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the fact that this guy is called, you know, Sean Get It Done Malone. And we're not talking about boxing. We're not talking about, he's not an MMA fighter. We're going to get into that. He's not a Grammy performing singer either. That record behind him does not mean he won something at the Grammys. We're going to talk about that too. Little thing called Two Comma. So you guys sit right there, because you're about to find out how you can do maybe 8 figures with your business. He's done it before. He's going to do it again. Sit right there. We'll be right back. Hi, are you a business owner, an entrepreneur, or starting your own business and wish you had an opportunity to sit down with an expert in your field? Well, check your local listings and watch Expert Talk with Tigo. I'm Tigo, and I'll talk to you very soon. Now, by looking at that commercial, you know we've been in entertainment for quite some time. So when I hear Sean Get It Done Malone, I think, oh man, he's a boxer. He's an MMA fighter. He's a singer. He's about to come out here with his band. But that's not what this means. You're literally talking about your business and helping other businesses. So let's talk about how you do that with this thing called Sales Ascender. What is that?
Yeah, so the Sales Ascenders is it's a family, it's a tribe, it's a movement of people that are in business that really are thriving get it done, right? And every single business owner that's out there, every agency owner, every entrepreneur literally always thinks, hey, where am I going to plant my flag and what's the big hill? But how do I get there? How do I get it done? Right? And so the secret is literally having framework that you can rely on every single time. And so what the Sales Ascenders does, really, there's two parts to our organization. A lot of people come to me and they say, Sean, I'm struggling with sales. I want to learn to close more deals. I need to get the gift of gab. I need to get to a place where I can actually close deals. And my question immediately is like, hey, I can help you master sales. I've been in the game for 20 years doing it. I spent over $500,000 in personal development to get good at it. Like I said, there's a science behind it. But I got to ask, like, how many appointments are on your calendar? And people get shook when I ask that question because they're like, what do you mean? And I say, well, open up your calendar. Let's look and see how many sales appointments you have. Because if you don't have at-bats, you're probably never going to hit the ball. Wouldn't you agree, Tigo?
Ah, yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. And so the Sales Ascenders, again, the two parts. The first part is we designed this little prospecting system. It's called the CORE system. It stands for Cold Outreach Engagement. And literally what it does is think about a spreadsheet. Everybody uses spreadsheets. And so if you had like columns lined up in a spreadsheet, and let's say you start and you find there's some sort of a filtering criteria. So it always starts with who do you want to serve? And so when you figure out who you want to serve, then once we have some sort of a filter, we get some people through that filter and we put them onto this first column in the spreadsheet. And literally that column corresponds to a certain message that's custom to any business, your business, my business, or whatever business it is. And so literally all we do is we say, okay, John Doe is in this column A here. We're going to grab this one little message that we spent some time designing, getting right. And then we'll open up either a social profile or we'll send it in a text or an email or something. And we'll send that message and we'll mark the date on that first column. And then that person, John Doe, now moves to column 2. And then we wait for a period of time. And then guess what? Column 2 also has a message that's been customized and templatized into a business. And so on and on and on, whether we're trying to get people to download podcasts, whether we're trying to get them to join groups, whether we're trying to get them to try something for free, or maybe even just to get into a mastermind or some sort of a done-for-you program, literally you can step people through and it becomes very visual when you see the dates and you can kind of see how everything works. So the first part of our mechanism or system is literally that. We teach that piece of it is how do you line up your calendar with the right opportunity based on a filtering criteria and a specific set of messages. And then when we move into the second part is like, now you have appointments on your calendar. Now you're going to be getting into all these different sales conversations. And again, it goes back to framework. It goes back to science. In sales, there's a science and there's an art. You have to learn the fundamental sciences. There's the basics. Once you know those, then you throw the flair of your personality, and that's the art. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me, but I have people I know are sitting at home right now. It's maybe early morning, late night. It could be 20:35, and they're going, I don't have a personality for sales. I'm not an entrepreneur. He's not talking to me. You know, what about those guys that are always dreaming of reaching that new height? They're dreaming of everything they want to do, but they're either terrified or I'm going to just put it out there. You guys know I keep it real, maybe a little lazy and don't want to put the work in, you know, and then Sean comes along, Mr. Get It Done. And he says, hey, get it done. This is how you do this. What do you tell that person to strike a match and get them moving?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that I unfortunately would disagree with the statement is like, I'm not a personality of sales, right? And I think when people think, hey, I'm not a personality for sales, what they're actually saying is they're a very good listener, but they don't like to be extroverted. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a very good listener, guess what? The best salespeople are the best listeners. So you probably have already done all the hard work. You just need to learn a little bit of framework and how to apply it. And how to do that is get yourself into a little bit of a test bed with people that you trust, you know, you like, have conversations, listen a lot, learn some questions you can ask that will literally help people guide them down the path into making decisions that are going to be best for them. I always say do it for good, never for evil. Anything I ever teach and share and tell people is always for good, never for evil. And you should never sell anything to anybody unless it's going to impact their life in a positive fashion.
Okay, you guys know me. I don't bring people to the table that, you know, the old saying goes, my mother used to say, those who teach can't. This man teaches and can and has proven. That little thing behind him is, like I said, it's not a Grammy Award winning record. That's not what that is. That little thing behind him is called a 2 Award. Now, if you paid attention in school, and you know, I went to Chicago Public School, and even I got this. In $1 million, there are 2 commas, which means he had to do at least what?
$1 million.
Make $1 million with his business. So can you explain exactly how you went from what I heard, $250,000 to over $8 million?
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah. So when so in the beginning of my story, and I sucked at sales, I eventually figured out this little prospecting system. And this little prospecting system started getting me into the sales conversations. And then I figured out that piece because I wasn't very good at that either. And eventually figured out a little framework that I could rely on every single time I went through a sales conversation. And I got okay at it. And I started making some money. And then I invested, I saved all my money. And then I invested into buying an electronics company that made circuit boards and cable assemblies for government companies. So it was business to government, business to business. And so when I got there, I ended up buying about 47% of this company. So all my education got me to that place. And I started with just 7 employees and a business partner. We were doing about $250,000 a year in revenue. And I said, okay, I got to grow this business. And so I took that little prospecting system and I made it custom to my new business that I was a part of. And then I started firing on all cylinders with the system, got myself into some, appointments, and then literally started closing some deals. And so over a period of about 2 years, we went from 250,000 to $8.5 million. And somewhere in there, I started saying, you know what, like I can't do all the sales myself. I need a team. And so I started forming these sales teams. There were rep networks across the nation. And so I actually had about 1,000, just over 1,000 sales reps reporting to me on a day-to-day basis that were helping me continue to grow this business. And we ended up getting to about that $8.5 million mark a year in sales. And then tragedy struck, right? So I don't know if you want me to share that part of my story. Are we there yet, Tigo? Or
yeah, go ahead, share it. They're sitting on the edge of the seat.
So I'm serving Lockheed Martin. Everyone knows Lockheed Martin, big company, government contractor, and we're making these really cool like laser guidance systems that would track rockets in the sky. Of course, this was a little bit over my pay grade. These people that were in the room were really super smart engineers. I was just the guy that could connect the right people. And we were working. My business partner called me. He's like, come back. There's an emergency. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I enter the meeting. I fly back to Las Vegas where the company is at. And I run down to the shop and I go in there and my business partner's sitting there and he goes, there's a gentleman sitting next to me. I was like, this is weird. Who's this gentleman and what's the emergency? And my business partner says, he goes, Sean, he goes, in the last 2 weeks you were gone, I actually sold the company to this guy. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, how could you have done that to me? I felt so betrayed. I felt so mad, angry, frustrated, and I didn't know what to do. And so that led me kind of into the bottom of most of the liquor bottles in Las Vegas. And that was about the time where, luckily, it always takes a ray of sunshine to pull you out of a dark place. I think you'd agree with that, right, Tigo? And
yeah.
I happened to run into my now wife, a girl at the time, and she's basically the one thing that saved me from going in a very bad direction. And she said, hey, you know what? I believe in you. I don't care what anyone else says. I believe in you. And I was like, oh man, like she was a rock that I could just hold on to. And she said, why don't you go do something else with your life? And I said, okay. So we kind of knocked off a little bit of the drinking. And I thought, what am I going to do? Well, I threw my resume out because I knew sales and I got a job selling roofing material. And I ended up, I said, okay, I got to build another business. Now I'd already done this a couple of times. I'd done it almost to that 8-figure level. And so I threw in this little prospecting system. And literally within the first 18 months, I broke every record that was at this roofing company selling roofing material. It was a pretty fascinating ride. And what I learned through that journey, the transformation I had was I realized that the people I was working with were the people I didn't want to work with. And so that was a big takeaway for me. It was like, oh man, you got to choose the right people to work with that make you happy and that fill your cup. Tigo, you've been through that, haven't you?
Oh, heck yeah. You're going to go through it whether you're in corporate America, you're an entrepreneur, you're with some kind of a team. Heck, if you're a Girl Scout, you go through that in one way or another, and I'm sitting here going, everybody knows I'm restricted by the network and we only have this much time. So I'm hoping you can come on and we can do a live stream or something and maybe do a little Q&A because I know our following's going, we got questions, we got this, but I got to get this in because not only do you teach this, not only are you practicing what you preach, but you've actually helped not one, not two, but a few businesses not hit 2 comma, but actually do 8 figures, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the first business was a company that sold in the online space, and we went from 3 million to 37 million in about a year, using the selling system and the selling method that we have. The second business was one of our own. We actually found this marketing company. And so after the roofing, I was like, what do we do next? And we ended up finding this little Facebook ad, and it took us into the online world. This was about 5 years ago for us. And we started building an organization that did marketing. I didn't know marketing. I just knew sales. And we used this little system, and we got some people in front of us, and it grew pretty quickly to a level where we were able to build a downline of about 2,500 people. It was an actual MLM, and they all invested $10,000 with us. So we got to a pretty big number pretty quickly. And then they said, hey, your software sucks. You need a software company. And so that was the time we're like, oh man, we don't know how to build software. So we ended up building a software company. And that's where this award actually came from, was we launched a software company in just over 10 months because we had the system stuff. We were able to hit $1 million on the front end. And on the back end, we ended up selling just about $12 million worth of these systems. Ooh. And that's literally where that came. And from there, it was like, oh man. And one of our coaches and our mentors at that time said, hey, you don't like who you're serving. It happened to me again. It was like over and over. It's like, how many times do you have to take to hit your head against the wall? And then finally it was like, okay, what are you good at? Sales. All these online entrepreneurs, they kind of suck at sales. You should help them. And that's where the Sales Essentials was born. And so we started a high ticket sales consulting agency to hire, onboard, and train sales teams. But through that process, what we learned, it wasn't that they couldn't hire, manage, or train, or even sell. The entrepreneurs were good at that. It was rather they didn't know there was this invisible pressure of, okay, Sean, I have a sales team. I'm freaking out about how I put the right people on their calendar. And I was like, oh man, okay, so there's that piece. And so literally we thought back and we're like, hey, we've had this system. So we put it in front of one of their businesses, and wham, all of them started smashing. And what we realized is we were only serving 5 high ticket clients at a time. We needed to get this out to the world because this is a skill that every business online needs, like 100%. And so we said, look, we're going to start from zero and be our own example. Get it done, right? That's what we talk about. So all of what Sid and I did, my business partner and I, Chris, and my wife, we started with zero list, zero group, zero everything. We put this system in place, and we did $100,000 in our first 7 weeks with no advertising. And from there, we sprung up into this really, really awesome tribe and a movement. And what's driving the movement is we're working towards ending world thirst. So there's a much bigger cause for anybody that comes into our tribe. What we do for every session of masterminding that we put on, we actually personally fund a clean water drinking well in a third world country.